Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello and welcome to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson, and I am going to talk about your great relationship. One of the things that I tend to bring out in my conversations about relationships is how to avoid the conflict, how to avoid problems, and if you have a problem in your situation, then how to navigate through that. But sometimes we are in situations, relationships, and we forget to maybe recognize that we are actually in a great relationship and to acknowledge our partner for all the wonderful things that they do. And I'm going to point out some things that help you remember that you are in a great relationship. Whenever I think about the birthday of someone, do you ever recall having someone send you a card, someone that thinks that you're special? Well, that person, if they're your significant other, that is one of the things that they would do for you to make you feel special. Or maybe they know some of the things that are important to you, like your favorite dinner. And like I said, remember your birthday, or maybe certain anniversaries, your parents' anniversary, or the birthday of your siblings. Maybe it could be the anniversary that you started working at a particular place, and they are there in your life to help celebrate your victories. That, because it's about you, it's specific to you and your association with this person that thinks you're special. That's one of the things that helps to remind you that you're in a great relationship. I know a lot of times we look over the fence and wonder what it's like on the other side. You know, the old expression, the grass is always greener on the other side. And we tend to do this when our own situation might be a little bit rocky or it's not going as smooth as we'd like. And when we're in those places, sometimes we look outside. We look outside for answers to things. And I think that is an opportunity to really turn inward and to look at how are you representing yourself? What are you bringing to the situation? And hopefully you're bringing peace. You're bringing opportunities to examine it. Like I say, are you doing a self-examination? And one of the nice things about a great relationship is you have an opportunity to grow. So if you've done something that you're not necessarily proud of, maybe you reacted in a way that was a bit over the top, wasn't very nice, being able to go back to your partner and apologize for something like that. And then not have your partner hold a grudge, but to recognize that you took the time to come and apologize. You see, a good relationship gives you room to make mistakes and then improve. And another thing a good relationship will do for you is to hold you accountable. I mean, think about that. Holding your partner accountable for something it can be a very thorny thing to have to do. There's potential for conflict. Some people don't like to be told things or have things, their mistakes pointed out because it makes them feel like they're being criticized or maybe overly criticized. Well, a good relationship will not only point out these things for you and, as I said earlier, give you an opportunity to grow, but allow you to really come to grips with the fact that when you make a mistake or when you do something that is not nice to your partner, to apologize and, sort of kiss and make up. I mean, you do owe it, number one, to your partner, if not just yourself, but you owe it to your partner to honor them and the fact that they are in a relationship with you. And it also helps to elevate you to recognize yourself and how you're being, and that you want to improve. And because your partner is in this with you for the duration, I'm not saying that they're keeping score, but you have to remember that they will hold you accountable so that you don't continue to slip, so that you don't continue to digress and be a person that's not trying to improve. I mean, why not? I mean, you're living life. Why not try to be a better person? And great relationships help you along the way. There are relationships, and now I'm going to take this to another level. There are the significant other, who is somebody who's in your space an awful lot. And then there are acquaintances or tutors or mentors, relationships of that type, who are good at instructing and giving you good advice. So at least to be able to deal with problems. And this is what teachers are. This is the opportunity that they have to impart their wisdom on us. And as a student, you're there to learn. And we honor the fact that someone who has attained a certain amount of knowledge, and they're passing it on to us, and having the opportunity to then test that over and over to see how well we've learned it. That's a great relationship too. And I know as a kid, one of the things that we did for a teacher, we brought an apple. That's what we did as a gift. That was sort of a tradition. But it was done to show respect to the teacher. I think when you remember those kinds of experiences in life, clearly you have had an opportunity to impart your wisdom upon someone else. And hopefully that made you feel good, because that gave you an opportunity to teach. You repeat that and you learn it as well. That's one of the things that teaching also gives you an opportunity to do, is to practice what you preach. So, when you want to be a good example of how to behave, if you make a mistake, what do? You own up to it, and then explain, and then you do better. That's what I would do in a relationship with my significant other. I'd own up to it. The explanation part isn't about giving an excuse. That's really about dissecting maybe the breakdown and how it happened. And by explaining it, sometimes that helps you better at understanding where you are. And like I said, when you have a significant other who's been in this for the long haul, they can sort of help keep tabs on things for you. And then you can do it for them as well. You see, great relationships give you that feedback and hold you accountable, because it makes you a better person. One of the fun things that I can remember about teaching people things is having something or a concept, an idea or a way of doing something land on someone, and then they take the idea and run with it and expand on it. It's fun to see that. You see the light go on, and then as they take the idea and make it their own and grow with it and run, that is so rewarding. For me, it's to know that I've had that impact on people, and then for them to come back and tell me how that it's worked for them. Because I don't have to, I don't own it. It's just being able to give them an opportunity to do the problem solving for whatever situation that they're dealing with. Now, to make it better for me, one of the things that I learned is to create the space that people would feel comfortable in coming and talking to me about things. So I'm generally a pretty upbeat individual, and one of the things that I find that I hold very sacred is I don't make fun of people when they are feeling vulnerable or feeling troubled about something. I may try to make things a little lighter for them so that they don't feel so heavy all the time, but it's never about making fun of the individual. It's about giving them the space to explain things and having me understand it. I will mirror things back, And once I feel like I have an understanding of what it is we're talking about, then I'll offer suggestions and tell them they are free to take the suggestions. It's nothing is a demand, but I offer that they give me feedback when they've tried to solve the problem. I'm going to take a short break. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast, and I'm your host, John Johnson. So stay tuned.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's gsmcpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Well, hello and welcome back. I'm John Johnson. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. Well, think about it. It's now fall 2018, and if you have small kids, they're back in school, and if you're a big kid, maybe you're in college. So, here's what's happening. You've got holidays that are going to be approaching us, and how are you feeling about that? Well, we're just going to talk about that for a moment. Holidays, for some people, are a lot of work. There's the stress. There's the people that enjoy holidays because it's really festive. You have Halloween coming, so they like putting up all the decorations and buying the candy and putting on costumes. And there's even the parties that surround that. And after Halloween, what do you have? You have Thanksgiving, and then there's Christmas. So we're moving into that fall season, and all these things are some things to look forward to for a lot of folks. But then there are those that really have a tough time with holidays because of the stress, or maybe because there's been someone that is special to them that is no longer around. They probably have passed away, or maybe they just didn't have great memories, or this has just been a real difficult time. So what I'm going to ask you is to think about what you can do to make somebody else's time a little better. If just lending an ear when you discover that there could be somebody out there that is going to have a rough time with the holidays. Now, this is something that a lot of people don't talk about, and it's usually something that brings itself to be known when somebody gets hurt. Let's say like suicide. Well, holidays bring about depression for a lot of people because of, as I've described, there's the work for others. I mean, there's something to focus on, but for some people, there's so much loss surrounding holidays that it just makes them sad. So I'm going to invite you to find somebody, and if you know somebody who generally has a rough time around the holidays, reach out to them. Have a conversation. It could just be really general in nature. And if you happen to know something real specific that they've maybe have lost a loved one or someone around the holidays, know that that's probably going to bring about some heaviness. Be willing to sit down and talk with them about it. I mean, you don't have to be a professional counselor to care about a person. And I think really that's where this stems from. And just really state your intention. State it. Hey, I know that you've had some tough times and some losses around the holidays. And I just wanted to let you know that I was thinking about you. Just offering that makes a big difference in people's lives. You'd be amazed at how much people appreciate being thought of in such a unique way. Because in a case like this, you're not asking them to do something for someone else. You are actually sharing your heartfelt thoughts of, hey, I'm concerned about you. And that goes a long way to making someone not only feel like they matter, but they in turn want to do that for someone else. There are lots of giving people in the world. And what they look for is an opportunity to be that, to be giving, to be loving. And when you start by offering something like that of yourself, then it reminds them that the world is not so cruel. I like to call this sort of thing planting the seed, because in and of itself, it is a small gesture of kindness, and you never know how far that gesture can carry. These things have a ripple effect. And I think one of the most important things in life to know is that you matter. So I'm going to share with you a little story that I remembered. I was a younger man. I was in my mid-20s, and there was an older gentleman that lived a couple of houses away. I recall that his wife had passed away. Like I said, he was considerably older. And back when I was a child, this gentleman was very kind. He would give candy to the kids. This is when, people were not worried about some of the weird stuff that goes on in the world, because I lived in a really, really multicultural, very friendly neighborhood. Well, I had the occasion to recall how in my parents' generation, they would still go door to door and talk to the neighbors and bring them food and loan sugar or toilet paper or whatever it was you needed. And I just had the inspiration one day while I was cooking to go down to this gentleman's house and share something of what it was that I had been preparing for dinner. Obviously, I had plenty, and that's just how my parents did it. Well, I'll tell you, that gentleman, his eyes lit up, because he was at a stage in life where a lot of times older people felt like they were just pushed to the side, that they weren't made to feel important. He didn't have grown children to relate to. So he was basically there at home by himself. And there were times, I'd see the garage up and he might be tinkering on something there, but he was pretty much alone. Well, this gave me an opportunity to go back and reconnect with him, because when I remember being a small child where neighbors would help each other. If you had a loose something on your bicycle, somebody would grab a wrench and they'd fix it for you. So I have fond memories of reaching out and extending the love to someone who was a neighbor. And right there, that is an opportunity. I don't know your circumstance. Maybe you live in a community where you don't actually get a chance to see your neighbors because everybody works at the same time. So you don't get that opportunity to see people in the everyday coming and going. Well, you're probably going to have to work a little harder to reach out to those neighbors. And I encourage you to do so by taking the risk. And I say it's a risk because some people are very afraid to communicate with people that they have never communicated with before. So think of that. That's novel, right? Well, take a risk. Be bold. Be nice. And reach out to someone. Learn something about your neighbors. Reconnect with them. Because like I say, when you do something that's nice, it has a ripple effect. And there has to be no other motive other than the fact that you're trying to be nice. And it will come back to benefit you because you are being cause in the matter, and you are showing people around you how it should be done, how you relate to people, how there's a lot of divisiveness that goes on in the world these days. And I think reconnecting with people is an important thing for not only yourself, not only for spiritual bonds, but for your community. And when you are a beaming example of how that's supposed to be, then people will take up that idea and carry it forward. They will teach it to their friends or their kids, or be an example in whatever other communities that they connect with. And I think the holidays give you an excellent opportunity to do that. Like I say, pretty close here, we're going to have a Halloween, and that's going to be an opportunity to see other people of different cultures out on the streets. So there you go. You could start with that. That's a catalyst for change. Look, I'm going to take another break, and I'll be right back. So stay tuned.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast gives you advice on everything from hair to fashion to skincare products. We'll talk about the latest trends in makeup, hairstyles, and anti-aging remedies. And we'll cover all of the newest fashion trends. If you have an interest in or questions about the beauty trends that might work best for you, the Golden State Media Concepts Beauty Tips Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Beauty Tips Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Well, hello and welcome back to Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast. I'm your host, John Johnson. Okay, so here's what happened. One of your friends said something that kind of got under your skin a little bit, and you reacted to it, at least to the point where you might have said something that was a little harsh, and it's bugging you because you normally don't react to things when people say them. So what do? Are you just going to kind of let it just hang out there and maybe some time will pass and it won't bother you anymore? Or is this going to keep eating at you until you address it somehow? Well, I'm thinking the latter. Obviously, it's been on your mind and you want to address it somehow. I think the way to handle this situation, number one, is to think about why what was said bothered you. And when you can kind of whittle that down to a few specifics, then at least when you go talk to your friend and maybe you want to apologize for the way you reacted, at least you'll have some understanding, because the conversation may come up that you were in reaction to something. And we generally all have some sort of subtext that's going on in our minds at every moment. It's just that subconscious thing that's happening. And whatever it was that's said, however it set you off and kind of got you in reaction mode, is something that, we kind of learn from it. And if it was just a moment, a temporary thing, and it probably doesn't happen again, then the explanation could be fairly simple. But if it's something that kind of has a recurring experience for you, that this sort of thing gets said and you kind of get triggered, then you want to kind of get to the bottom of that so that you're not always in reaction mode, so that you're not a slave to those sort of emotions, which could, potentially, put you in a real embarrassing spot. I think we all have moments when we say things that we're not really proud of, and oftentimes when we catch ourselves in that spot, we have the opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that," or you can kind of cover it up somehow. But sometimes we aren't aware of it, at least not in the moment, and then down the road, we may just replay that tape in our head about what transpired, and at that point you probably want to at least consider making an apology. That way you can get a clean start and it doesn't ruin the friendship. Not that a lot of these things do, but sometimes when that thing is just sort of hanging out there, the next time you get in a group with this person, it may be an awkward experience, it may be an awkward exchange. And rather than have that be out there in your space, in your life, learn how to address those things, learn how to get to the bottom of it. And I think as you learn to clean up those kinds of experiences that you have, you learn to be cause in the matter, and you can take those kinds of things and put them away and never have to worry about them again. Because it's a way of operating that puts you in control of your emotions and the experience that people have around you. I think we've all been around someone who is sort of popped off and just said whatever came off the top of their head. Sometimes it's funny, and sometimes it could sound a little bit mean-spirited, and even when the other person reacts, that is, whatever this comment that was made lands on them, they can kind of give you a reaction and you'll know if it hit a sore spot or not. And I, for one, am not the kind of person that want to leave people with a bad experience. So if I say something that sort of lands wrong, then generally I'm going to check back with them and try to clean it up. And I think given that, most people know that I'm not a mean-spirited person. Now, somebody who's a little less sensitive then will probably say things and not care how it lands on folks. And I would caution that individuals like that, not being very sensitive, they're probably lived a life where people were sort of that way towards them. So they think nothing of kind of dishing out the insults. Well, I'm going to encourage that if you see something like that operating, maybe you might call them out on it. Say something to them, hey, that wasn't a very nice thing. You don't have to do it publicly, but you can kind of pull them aside and make them aware of the impact of the things that they say and what they're doing and how it lands on other people. Because for what it is, we are responsible for what we say, and oftentimes, how it lands on people. Because everybody has their own interpretation, but if you say something in a mean way and it affects someone, I think you need to take responsibility for that. Of course, there are times in life where we say things and then people misinterpret what our intention is. I think that happens often. And when those things happen, I think we have an opportunity to revisit that and to restate what we originally intended. And as we learn to take responsibility for what we say and how we say it, then we become more skillful at communicating. And that's really what the bottom line of this is learning how to communicate to people, learning that we say things and they land on people. And as it would be that if someone says something to you and it doesn't feel very nice, I think you appreciate when they come to you and offer an apology for having said something that wasn't really cool. They may not have realized that it wasn't such a nice thing to say at the first place, but to recognize that it didn't land very well and to want to clean it up really makes them a better person, I think, in your eyes, because it shows that their sensitivity. And that's a good example to follow. And one that when you embrace yourself, you not only teach people that you're a class act, but oftentimes when you do it, just by showing that example, it helps other people see how they can raise to the level of being a person that's caring and considerate. One of the things that I have always found as an inspiration to me is when I've seen a person that gets, in a public way, they have some sort of insult or maybe a harsh comment that's directed towards them, and then being that person that it lands on, how skillfully they absorb that. They listen for what maybe the question is, maybe not how it was stated, but whatever the question is, state the question in a nicer way and then answer it. I watch people who, let's say, for an example, people who are say politicians, for lack of a better word, how oftentimes in a public forum, they get questions and they are expected to respond in a way that's very professional. And sometimes the people that ask the questions may not ask them in a nice way, but still being able to keep your composure at such times, I think, really shows your maturity and that you can be a class act. I'm John Johnson, and I've been talking about having great relationships and skills towards improving yourself and your communication with others. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Relationships Podcast, and I want to thank you for listening.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.